Alright guys, so today I just wanted to do, I know informational videos are definitely boring, but one of the biggest questions I get asked a lot, I never really get time like when I'm filming a video to answer it. I'm not really the best filmer, fisherman on YouTube, like not even close, not at all. So I don't really get a lot of time to explain. So one of the biggest questions I get is how do I catch more fish or how do I catch bigger fish? And we're just talking Pennsylvania, like local, statewide, pretty much, or even probably into other trout streams. You could probably apply some of this information, but more fish and bigger fish. So, the first part I wanted to talk about is simple. So, rod and reel setup. I'm a big fan of Daiwa only because that's what I grew up using. And most of the time, every Daiwa that I've used, it honestly, it's got a good drag. Um, it holds big fish really well. It's very smooth. It stays smooth. It's easy to clean. So this is just the handle's still in the box, but just a Daiwa like this. This one was a little on the higher end side, but I mean when you seriously start to fight more fish, you're gonna feel that this has a really good drag. That's the first thing I wanted to talk about. So you need a quality reel that's going to be able to hold like a good amount, enough line to where you're going to give yourself a buffer to fight big fish or more fish. Now, the second part I wanted to talk about is the rod. So I have them all sitting there. I'm not going to grab them and point them at you, but I like a 6 foot rod. I take 6 foot honestly just about anywhere. I mean, if I wasn't using my phone to film, I would pull up pictures of like the steelhead. I use it saltwater a lot of the time, speck fishing, redfish fishing, rock fishing. But when it comes to trout fishing around here or steelhead fishing around here, I love that 6 foot. I mean, it is got a good backbone. It's very sensitive. I can feel the first hit. Like I can get a good distance cast, with a 6 foot ultralight. That is by far my choice. And like I said, sometimes you need to feel that bite that you can get that fish hooked as soon as you can. That's a big part of it. I've lost a lot of fish on different rods because when I was younger and growing up, I didn't know any better. And as I started to learn that, I seriously landed more fish and bigger fish. Now, another really important part of that is your line. I used to go cheap with line because I couldn't really, back in the day, I couldn't afford decent line. But when I started to upgrade my line, I went with Seeger and Vizex. Now I know that's a lot of money for just one spool, but in 6 pound and Vizex, I mean the way that it ties knots, the knots hold well. It's got good strength. It doesn't hold memory. I mean these are really small things, but when it adds up, it is extremely important. I can't tell you how many I should be tying new knots every steelhead or two, and I get a little excited and I forget. And those knots have seriously held some good sized fish. So I highly recommend 6 pound fluorocarbon in general, but I really do personally recommend the Invisex. I've landed a lot of big fish on it, and it's a very important part of it. Now, another thing too, so this is something that a lot of people don't know, or maybe they do know and they don't talk about, but I am going to bring it up. And I'm not naming places, I'm not doing any of that, but there's a few things that big trout are always going to be around. So I'm going to use this board here. Hopefully you can kind of see me. So you got your first thing, and that's going to be cover. So cover is extremely important. You probably can't read that, but so cover is the first thing that all big fish, most trout in general, are going to be around. If you can make something as simple as those better casts, if you can make the cast that either lose a lure or it's absolutely perfect, if that cast is absolutely perfect towards that brush line, that log, that area of cover, that rock edge, you're going to find that you're going to catch a lot more fish. Now, the second thing, and this is huge, when the water is higher. Now, this is extremely important because when the water is higher, those fish aren't going to be as afraid of predators. They're going to be feeding. There's going to be a lot more food circulating into their area. those fish are going to be ready to feed. I mean, I've caught countless of my biggest fish have been when that water is higher. I'm serious. When, like for me, so central Pennsylvania, you got, the winter time. So when it snows a whole bunch, when it just dumps snow, even if it's like 3 to 6 inches of snow, when that snow melts, that's a great time for you to be going out. As soon as that snow is melting, that water level is going to rise. That's a big time to go. And I know everybody talks about, fishing in the rain. Now, fishing in the rain is great, but fishing right after the rain's done, you give it a little bit, you give it half an hour after a good rain, that water level is going to rise. And those smaller creeks, it's going to rise fast. That's honestly the one time, like if you're not fishing, let me put it this way. If you're a big trout fisherman and you're not fishing right after those heavy rains, you're missing out, because those heavy rains, seriously, those fish are moving, they're hungry, they're going to feed. They're not going to see you. They're not going to get as spooked. You don't really have to be as stealthy. You don't have to hide behind trees, bushes, make casts from your knees. Like, you don't have to do all that. You can get your better casts when you're on your feet and you have mobility. So that's a big part of it as well. Now, another thing, so I can sit here and show the basics, like, you got your woolly bugger jigs and you got your rooster tails. This is all stuff people use, and that's great. But there's one thing that, like, as you guys have known if you watch my channel, I'm absolutely huge into jerkbait fishing. Now, this jerkbait, the HD Trout in general, is what I'm huge on. I usually don't tell people, what I use, but I mean, I'm sorry, I'm gonna tell people just to help everyone out. I do use a Dynamic Lures HD Trout almost all the time, and there's a couple reasons to that. I've used all the jerkbaits before. I've used all the Rapala series. I've used, the Azuri Pins minnows. I've used the Rebels. I've used them all. Seriously, I have. But the reason why this jerkbait is better is, if I show you up close, if you can see that, the balance on this jerkbait is absolutely incredible. This is a great design. That bill doesn't give out. That bill, I've seriously thrown this in some rapid kind of water when the water's high, and it just still does its same flutter movement absolutely perfectly. It does not kick out for me. I mean, that is so huge. All the other jerkbaits, they kick out in high water. But due to this jerkbait not kicking out in heavier water is a big reason why you have extra hookups. It really is. The other part, when you twitch this, the way that this jerkbait was designed, if you've ever watched a minnow in a creek, when the minnows kind of flutter like this, like they turn to their sides, like, I can't really do it well with my hand, but they kind of like flick to the side like that. I mean, you've seen minnows in a creek, they do that. This jerkbait, when you twitch it just like that, like the little twitch with a sensitive 6-foot rod, that's going to get bites. I mean, that's huge. That's something that when I started doing, I noticed, I mean, almost instantly off the bat, I was getting more fish. And the last thing that I do want to show is kind of a model here on how, so I'm going to show you, like, so this right here, this is the water, this is the stream. I'm a terrible artist, but a big thing is when I'm standing, like, right here with my rod. So if the water is flowing this way, I hope you all can kind of see this, but the water is flowing that way and I'm standing here. I mean, my casts are almost like the 1 o'clock angle this way. Now, why that? So if I can get that to the other side and I bring that minnow just right across, as the minnow is facing kind of this way instead of just being a side-faced minnow. It's facing this way. It looks like it's trying to move, up or downstream. It's moving into an area where a trout is feeding. That's important. Casting that way for me has seriously just led to so many more bites, and that's with steelhead fishing as well. The biggest mistake I do see with people that go up to Erie to steelhead fish for their first time is they're just casting and casting. They're just throwing right in the middle of a hole. I mean, that's great. Like, that'll catch fish, but if you want to catch more fish, you're going to have to make those better casts. Casting is so important. I mean, it took me years and years before I was even able to throw, those casts underneath bushes, those casts underneath logs. It's all about your feel. And I feel that, the 6-foot rod, your 2500 size reel with the 6 pound line is seriously going to help you guys catch more fish. So I hope this video helped. I know I just went on a rant, but that's kind of, my tips for success for catching fish in Pennsylvania. And that's for people that are coming, from out of state, people that are coming from, even if you're around here and you just want to get into trout fishing. Like this video, I tried to make this video to help you guys out because I get a lot of those questions and I don't have time in my videos to answer them or really talk about what I'm using, but how I'm using it. And like I said, if there's anything I can take away from this is, like I said, the 6 foot rod, the 6 pound line, that line's very unseeable for the fish inside the water, low clear water, or a little bit higher water. This already said 6 foot rod, but the presentation of your bait, like when in doubt, just try and imagine, say I'm throwing a jerk bait that's supposed to imitate a minnow. You got to think like, how can I get this presentation to look almost identical to a real minnow? Because that's what the fish are going to be feeding on. So I hope I helped you guys out, and I hope to get back into making some videos here soon. I just got off school with, my Thanksgiving break, Christmas breaks coming up. So hopefully I can get some more, trout fishing steelhead videos out. But if not, I'll see you guys on the next adventure. All right. Thank you for watching.